Welcome back to Radio Row in New Orleans, site of Super Bowl 59. It's the Kansas City Chiefs and the Philadelphia Eagles, and we're thrilled to have Phil Simms. No.
Keep it going. I like it. It's so great that you did that. No, I like this.
I'm thinking of a story about your dad that I want to get into.
Oh, that's so great. But you called me Phil Simms. You know how often that happens and people don't even realize they do that? I used to have referees in the game call me Phil in the NFL. They pick me up off the ground after the game. They go, "You okay, Phil?" And I'm like, I'm very proud of my dad's career, and I don't give a damn anyways. And I wouldn't even correct him. I'd be like, "Yep, I'm good. Let's go."
It's Chris Simms. It's Chris Simms. It's Bourbon Street getting a hold of me. No, I was thinking there's a great story with your dad. I don't know if you've ever heard this. I don't know if you've never heard it because I haven't told you probably. So one of our all-time best bits on 1040, TSN 1040 in Vancouver, they had your dad on the show with Barry McDonald and Rick Ball. And unfortunately, an ex-employee decided to phone on the hotline and say, yeah, it's Phil. So Trevor Martin's our producer, puts Phil Simms on the air.
Right.
And Barry comes out with this question. I don't know what the numbers are. I'm just going to paraphrase here. But, Phil, 18 to 22 in the Super Bowl. What happened on the last 4 passes?
Yeah.
I was drunk. And Rick Ball, our other host, goes, that's not Phil. Trevor, what are you doing? He's just getting lazy to his producer. He goes, you got duped. And it was like a famous clip that we ran for so long. And then the host did a really good job because what they did, like the next segment, they got your dad on. And then the next segment, they just ran people doing imitations. Guy phoning up saying he's Joe Pesci. And then the guy phoning Mike Tyson.
I love it.
So the tail end of the story, Trevor gets promoted from producer to program director. And I phone your dad up. I go, hey, do a little promo and say thanks for him. He goes, hey, Trevor, Phil Simms, just want to say congratulations on your promotion, and just remember, don't get duped. Right? He just ran the whole thing. I mean, it was priceless.
I'm amazed it doesn't happen more in radio sometimes, people getting duped and all that. But, how did he get through the lines there? He just said he's Phil?
He said? Yeah, he was an ex-employee. You know the number, right?
Damn, and he got a raise off of that?
No, he was an ex-employee to start.
Okay.
Hey, how much fun you having this week?
Oh, I always have fun here. I do. I enjoy Monday and Tuesday just because it's a little bit of a slow ramp up to kind of get used to Radio Row and the craziness that's going to go on here. But, man, the Super Bowl, New Orleans is one of the best places to do it. You can walk everywhere, so I love that. I am one that's totally in favor of this matchup. I like it. I got no problem. I'm not exhausted by it. I like to see the best teams in the Super Bowl. I do. I was rooting hard against the Commanders in the NFC Championship game because I knew that they got to the Super Bowl, there was a chance they could get blown out, and we could sit there in the second quarter and go, damn, the Super Bowl's over. They're going to get blown out. So I did not want to see them. This is the clash of the Titans right here. Now, I thought before the playoffs, I thought the Ravens would be the team that came out of the AFC, right? I did. The way the Ravens were playing, I thought Ravens-Eagles is going to be the Super Bowl when the playoffs started. But as we know, they kind of messed that up, and this team in red, they just never die here.
I had the same picks, and I looked at the Ravens and I'm going, they've got Derrick Henry this year. Yeah. They've got this weapon. It's going to make life easy for Lamar. It'll give Lamar the edge. It's going to force teams to pick their poison.
Yes.
And I just think they kind of went away from that.
They got a little away from it, and ultimately
mistakes.
Mistakes. Yeah. I mean, you'd hate to just boil it down to that, but you watch the game. I mean, they couldn't stop Baltimore. Baltimore went up and down the field on them whenever they wanted. Baltimore was one of the greatest offenses we've ever seen in the history of football. That to me is more of the, like people talk about Lamar. Lamar's going to get there at one point. Lamar's an all-time great. He is. And I don't think Lamar's choking. I think Lamar wants it so bad he tries to do too much in these games. And in playoff football, as you know, with how close it is and the defenses are just more dialed in and you're playing a playoff defense, to think you could just freelance and, somebody's got my foot after the ball hit the ground and now I'm going to 360 flip out of it and then still throw the football. That's like crazy shit Josh Allen used to do back in the day. Sorry about the S word there. But yes, that's where he's going to dial it in. And, I feel bad for Baltimore because really probably 2 years in a row they were probably the best team in football and they haven't even gotten to the Super Bowl yet.
Conversely, Patrick Mahomes. And, the thing about him and I think the reason he can do it is because he's got those reference points. Yeah. Right? He's done it in the past. Like,
exactly
okay,
right.
You know what? Hey, no problem. I got this down pat. And he just has all of these previous experiences in those tight situations that when he gets in those situations, I think he embraces the pressure.
They love the pressure. They don't run from anything. That's what's so cool about them. They love it. They love being the greatest show around. They love, hey, Taylor Swift, paparazzi, jump on. And to your point, I think it is one of their greatest advantages. But, like, this one of the things of the game itself. I know Philadelphia was here just a few years ago, but they still got a lot of guys that weren't here, and it's still a new experience. Like, Kansas City is not going to be at all worried about the moment. When you come back from 10 points down and 3 Super Bowls in the fourth quarter, man, nothing's going to make your blood boil after that. After that, you feel like I can handle anything. So, yes, they're tough. If it's a close football game, it's hard to pick against the Kansas City Chiefs. He's the clutchest quarterback we have ever seen. And I can't believe I'm saying that because Tom Brady was the clutchest quarterback I've ever seen. And it's really not even close, really, through the first 7 years. Mahomes is unreal. We've never seen anything like it.
You know, I'm glad you brought that up because I remembered something the other day. If you remember the Super Bowl where the Patriots went into the game undefeated against the Giants,
sure.
The Giants had the David Tyrell.
Right.
They score, and there's about a minute left.
Yeah.
And I say to myself, they gave Brady too much time.
Yeah, I remember thinking that too.
But he didn't march the Patriots down.
Right.
If that's Patrick Mahomes, I'm like, he's doing it.
Well,
right?
The stats bear it out. If you look at the stats and, like, needing a score in the fourth quarter, and I'm paraphrasing here, so I'm going to be a little bit off, but needing a score in the fourth quarter down in the playoffs, like Brady did it like 5 out of 11 times when they needed it. Mahomes, I believe, so far has done it He's like 8 for 8, right? So the clutchest quarterback we ever saw was either at 50% or barely above 50%. And this guy, I mean, as we've discussed so much, his floor is losing in overtime in the AFC Championship game so far in his career. That's his floor. And 2 AFC Championship games, Brady and Burrow, that's the worst he's done in a season. I mean, I just can't say enough about the greatness of him and this matchup because Philly's the better team. There's no doubt. Philly is one of the best, most well-orchestrated teams in football in the last 20 years. It's the best O-line in football. It's the best D-line in football. It's maybe the best duo of receivers in football. It's the best running back in football. The tight ends are damn good. The secondary is maybe young but very talented. The linebackers are good. I mean, they're unbelievable, Philadelphia. But they're simple. It's brains versus brawn in this matchup.
Do you know it's interesting that you talk about Philly and their greatness, and it reminds me of something you said on your podcast with Mike Florio, Pro Football Talk. I started to howl. You were like, I think you were talking about the NFC Championship game, or probably the game against Washington, and you said, hey, you know what? If they hold Saquon Barkley to 120 yards, classify it as a win.
Yes.
Think about that.
Exactly right.
Right.
My thing I've said probably from about week 10 is the Eagles' offensive line is as good as the 90s Cowboys. They do not get his credit. They run 3 plays on offense in the running game. Everybody knows what they're about to do, and you still can't stop it. It's the best tackle duo in football. The best guard in football is Landon Dickerson. And then the other 2 guys, the center's like top 6 or 7. Mekhi Becton's really damn good. They can do whatever they want. And then they pose problems for you because then you worry about loading the box, and A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith are one-on-one. And those are the things Steve Spagnuolo is going to have his hands full dealing with this team.
And I'm glad you mentioned Spags and also Andy Reid. And we're speaking with Chris Sims from Pro Football Talk, not Phil, but Chris. But when you talk about equalizers and guys that might give Kansas City an edge, is it Spagnuolo and Reid?
That's what it is. And that's why I kind of gone this, like my theme since last week has been Eagles brawn versus Chiefs brains, right? And not that either one are too deficient in the other one, right? The Chiefs are still very physical and the Eagles are still very smart. But let's just say the Eagles are a notch above the Kansas City Chiefs. But Mahomes, Andy Reid, and Spagnuolo, just those 3 alone, close the gap tremendously. The Chiefs were not better than the Eagles in the last Super Bowl they played. They were not. The Mahomes clutchness and Steve Spagnuolo, we went back and watched that game on film. Some of the defenses and the chances they took because they knew they were overmatched and they had to gamble on a few plays, he won the Super Bowl for them. I know that sounds weird because they scored 35 points, but they and the defenses he called and his creativity were the reason they were allowed to come back from a 10-point deficit at halftime, and of course having a big fumble recovery touchdown really saved the game for Kansas City.
I want to ask you about the Seahawks very quickly because there's a lot of Seahawk fans in our neck of the woods.
Sure.
Just, of course, Vancouver so close to Seattle. What do you see happening with the Seahawks in the offseason, and how do they get to the next level?
Yeah, I don't think the Seahawks are too far off, right? Making a change at OC, which was probably needed. I get that. I like the defense and what Mike McDonald does. I've always been a fan of that. And I don't even think we've seen the full story there yet because I think it's pretty complex, and you'll see more and more things added in this year. The talent on the defensive side of the ball. I like that. The defensive line is real deal. Offensively, I mean, again, I think the talent is there other than the O-line. We've been talking about O-line in Seattle for 5 years now.
Yeah.
Maybe more. And that's what's crazy is because we went off the Legion of Boom days where the offensive line was the best thing about the offense. It was him and Marshawn Lynch, and then Russell made a few plays. So that, to me, and the health of Kenneth Walker are the two things that continue to kind of hamstring them or hold them back. But I do think they're close, and I would not be shocked with a few free agent additions and things like that they're a major player again in the NFC West.
I've been to this deal, Radio Row, 23 times now. Show's been here 24 times. I've stopped going to the game maybe 4 or 5 years ago. I've got a new goal now.
Yeah.
Like what would get me excited for Super Bowl Sunday?
Right.
To watch the game in your garage.
Oh, you want to come over to the barn.
To the barn. Because I know that's where you watch the game, you do all your work, and you just go into the barn. If you're not working the game, you go to the barn, daddy cigarettes, all of those things.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, we could have a really good time watching the game. We could,
between your real cigars and my daddy cigars that have some, greenery inside them, okay? We would have a blast, definitely. But that is my spot. Now, like this time of the year, right, I don't know if I'll do it on Super Bowl Sunday. I'm not going to stay for the game either. It's cold as hell in the Northeast, and I have like a stove that has to heat up the barn, so it takes a while. I have to get out in front of it. But like Thursday night, college Saturdays, man, I sit in the barn, and if I don't have to work, I'm drinky,
you
smoky.
should sell like tickets to that or something. Like bring in tour groups.
I know, we might do that because I do the draft live from my barn. And I do drinky, smoky live.
Awesome.
On the bar. Yeah, so you're right. Maybe I need to do that.
Well, I'll tell you one thing. Keep up the great work. You and Mike, I love it. It's just like it's unplugged, and it's just like watching two guys talk in a bar.
Thanks
right?
a lot.
Except two very, very smart guys.
Well, we're smart. We know a lot of people. We love it. So that's the big thing. Just like you do. You
Thanks,
do a great
buddy.
job too.
Appreciate it. All the best. Chris Sims, Pro Football Talk, stopping by.